Everybody listen to We're Not Wizards, because we are the best, and we're not wizards, no matter what anybody says. Goodbye.
Hello and welcome to another episode of We're Not Wizards. My name's Richard. I'll be your host for February. There's a warmth to February, or there could be a warmth to February. It's depending on what you're doing. Whether you're staying at home with some lovely central heating, or whether you are, maybe outside, roughing it. Not just by yourself, though, with your buds. Putting some more logs on the fire. Watching it crackle in the air, and just enjoying maybe having a sing-song. Or maybe you're just sitting there wondering how your Kickstarter is doing so well on such a delightful and simple little idea. And, well, I'm not doing that, but the person I'm speaking to, you could say he had a little spark before the flame.
Oh, he did it. He's only gone and done it.
I did. It's the guy who decides to interrupt before I'm finished my intro from Board Game Bud. I've got Rob Sparks. Yeah.
Hello. That was nice. That was the best. I need that recorded just for whenever I enter a room now. Something that the Dorset Dons are Scottish.
The interesting thing is that this conversation will possibly be available for you to download in a couple of days' time. Isn't that just something exciting, something amazing? What happened was basically that Cesar kind of contacted me. He's quite intimidating. He's very kind of in control, and he contacts me. And he just says, he uses big words that I don't understand because he's a businessman and he's a busy businessman. And what he said is, he said something along the lines of, Richard, I've got this fantastic Kickstarter campaign coming to Kickstarter very, very soon. And he says, I was wondering if there was any way that you would like to speak to one of the creators. And I said, of course I do. I'm not going to turn you down because you scare me. And he said, good old man, I'll put you in contact. And that's kind of how it went. And obviously, the next thing that I did was me and Rob shared a couple of emails, and now we're having a chat about his game, which is doing fantastically well on Kickstarter. You must be slightly more than happy about the current situation.
Yeah, I can't say that I'm disappointed. Who'd have thought? Little tin full of blocks. Tinderblox full of blocks. Could say, yeah, it's done really well. To be honest, on the day that it went off, I work in this co-working studio, and everyone else in the studio was way more running up to me and oh my god, have you seen the number now? And I was trying to do some work. I was oh my god, I can't believe it. Funded in 2.5 hours was yeah, I can't complain for a first time. So yeah, but I think it's just mad to think that just you have loads of people playing your game, and you're just oh god, I can't wait for them to start making campfires indoors. Maybe actually set it on fire. That's going to be a DLC, actually, I think. Just a can of petrol.
You could have actually send a box of matches out to people in the post. And just say it's Tinderblox 2, the burning.
This time it's real.
But, in all fairness, the feedback that I've been reading, not obviously because we got a chance to play it ourselves, because I asked Cesar and he went, that's not part of the agreement. He says, if I want somebody to play, I'll go and speak to the Polyhedron Collider guys. If I want somebody to talk, then I'll speak to you, okay? And I went, okay, sir, I'm really, really sorry. I'm painting a really bad picture of Cesar at the moment. He's not. He's a really, really lovely guy. But at the same time, the word round the campfire is, and they're just going to keep coming, is that people are having a lot of fun with this. I mean, the Giant Brain have spoken about it, and they seem to be impressed. Polyhedron Collider were, I think it was Rory J. Summers who kind of did a write up on it, and he really, really liked the kind of the concept. Has that been a bit of a surprise? Because I know it's kind of easy to look through things in a blinkered manner and there's a mixture between kind of confidence and also there's a little bit of self kind of doubt. But when you were sending this out, I take it, did you have a level of confidence to say, look, I know this is actually pretty decent?
I mean, yeah, Alley Cat sort of have been great in all this. They've sort of been sending out the review copies, and I haven't necessarily known where they've gone. So every day I've just been going on Twitter, just doing a little search. Having to do the same thing every day. I was searching Tinderblox, and it's did you mean Tinderbox? I'm like, no, latest Tinderblocks. And then just going through them. And yeah, I actually think. It's the feedback from people has just been ridiculous. It's nice seeing obviously the Kickstarter's doing really well, but seeing people in the comments and people reviewing and having such a good time. And yeah, I think there was an element of confidence when I gave the original version to Alley Cat. It was just before UK Games Expo last year, and it was entered into. I think they have this publisher speed dating event. Very sensual. You have to submit a game and then buy them dinner and then hope that they buy your game. No, but ultimately...
You can't say things you can't actually say stuff like that because there'll be people listening and going, bribery. I knew it. There's definitely bribery. And it's no, it was a McDonald's.
I let them keep the toy. Which was just so happy
exactly. A little chocolate milkshake, and I know Cesar goes daft for a chocolate milk. He goes mad for a chocolate milkshake. I mean, you can smell one from about 300 feet away. So if you went in armed with a chocolate milkshake, I'd just surprised he went right. If I sign this game now, can I just have the milkshake? And you would have went, yeah, sure. Crack on.
I'm taking notes here for the sequel, just in case I need to bribe them.
What's that going to do? Is that going to be just called Ashes?
Ashes, yeah. It's just a box of ash. It's a dexterity game with particles. It's just a bunch of dust. Stack up the dust. Make the old.
How bad would that be? How amazing would you have to be at dexterity to win a dexterity game where it's just dust on the table and you have to move bits of dust around.
Just wood shavings and ash, yeah.
Dust.
Just
dust. You've got to guess. You've got to piece together what it was beforehand. And nobody knows. Nobody guesses.
It's the worst jigsaw puzzle ever. World's hardest one, for sure.
That does remind me of the worst joke ever about a box of Frosties. And somebody try to do a jigsaw of the tiger kind of thing. And it's not in that order and I've ruined it, but it doesn't matter anyway. You like a tin?
I do.
And, I'm glad I asked this before we did the podcast, because otherwise you'd be going, like a what?
Like a 10?
Like a what? Why is there no subtitles on this thing? Is this not working?
We had a little confrontation before about a 10? What's a 10?
It was an all-out fight. It was a fight. Let's face it.
It got a bit.
I'm only doing this now because Cesar's got that hold on me and I can't get away. But otherwise, I'd be just going right. I don't care. You'll have to get success your own way with your little project about burning stuff. But what is it? Because you've been kind of developing, designing games for a little while. But what attracts you about the little mint tin games specifically?
To be honest, it started off as just I entered a contest for I think it was the 2018 Mint Tin Design Challenge. And And because I was kind of doing loads of different designs, and they were getting like pretty far, but I never actually really finished one, or by at least I've never written a rule book for any of them by this point. So I entered this contest, like sort of thinking, yeah, why not just have a little sort of go at something a bit different, and I just found that like the moment I had such like a big constraint, which was the tin. I mean, there's only so much you can fit in there. I found that it actually just made me, like, it seemed to just click. Like, I couldn't go down the classic, like, early designer rabbit hole of just constantly adding stuff. Because there's only so many cards you can fit in a tin, or so many dice. So I kind of found it just like sharpened my design skills, like all of a sudden, because, you know, I had a lot of designs sort of getting a bit bloated, and it kind of made me design something really simple, really accessible, and actually made me have I'm somebody who needs like a fire under my ass to finish stuff. So no pun intended.
Okay.
But
that's fine. I put the worst one in already, so
nice one. I need a deadline. Like, I need a deadline to do stuff to really finish it. So like the contest deadline was great, and like the fact that I realized once I started sort of coming up with, the game was called Packet Tin, and it was this, I'm all about puns. It's Packet Tin, and it was about packing a suitcase just to go on holiday. And like the idea of the game was that like you packed it away as you played. If the better you did, the sort of more of the game you actually packed away, which I thought was kind of neato. But the I found that like I started to sort of do some work on it, and then as I got like nearer and nearer the deadline, and the sort of like that fear that you need to actually finish it started creeping in, I realized like I'd never done a rulebook before, and I never really like had to play test a game fully like over and over and over again, because I just inflicted my raw, horrible prototypes on my friends at the time. Bribed them with beer, though, obviously. It's the only way that they would come. But, I just kind of got to this point where I realised I'd never done a rulebook, never done play testing, not even, like, branding the game. There were loads of elements that I'd never had to do, that I had to suddenly do for this. And it kind of, like, it just sort of, it did really well. I ended up winning the contest, sort of, I think, first in 3 categories and third in the other 2. So I was like chuffed to bits at that. And I think once that kind of sort of resolved, I just continued making Minton games, because it's that there's only so much you could fit. And I don't know, I really like, I don't know, you probably have, I think this is a universal problem, but like, I have no more room on my shelves for board games. Like, it's absolutely full. I still buy them. I always have these Kickstarters turning up. I'm like, I have literally nowhere to put this. But little Minton games, you just chuck them in your pocket. They don't take up any room, and go to the pub, have a cheeky little game here and there. And yeah, that's kind of how it all started. And I just kept rolling with it, really,
Are you from a design background then? I mean, as a kind of normal job or career, is that where you're kind of involved?
Yeah, like, well, I was a pro. I did like a really like quite sort of half programming and making a lot of like weird stuff at uni, like making like electronic instruments and like weird art installations. So half of the course was like graphic design, the other half was programming and circuitry. And then I kind of went into an app development job with and like front end web sort of stuff for a while, but then I got a little bit bored of the programming, to be honest. I found like fixing other people's bugs was just mind numbing. So but it was a small team, and like I worked remotely for like my whole career, so they kind of needed a graphic designer to start doing brand stuff, and I just sort of started self-teaching myself. So I kind of started like doing brand design for websites, and rather than programming the front end, sort of actually designing the wireframes and stuff. And it just kind of evolved into sort of like, because the company I worked for had so many different websites that they needed like a different brand for each one, that I just had so much practice making names and doing branding and all that stuff. And it's surprisingly transferable to board games. Like probably the favourite part of making a board game is actually like, I think when I get the name and in my head like think of like what the logo kind of looks like, I'm very like on board to finish it. So like I definitely come from a design background. I love that part of it, like designing cards. I think like getting into board games, like I got into them like after I was a graphic designer, and I was just so blown away by like how beautiful so many games are, like, and just how much they get across with like just like so little, just a bit of artwork. And so I think that's the massive draw for me. Like, obviously as well, like I think the programming background really helps with like thinking of mechanics and systems and even like debugging a little bit, which is the playtesting thing sort of element of it. So yeah, I think like it's definitely been, I didn't think I would be designing board games, but I didn't realize that career was actually going to be super useful, from here. So yeah, no, it's been good.
So in terms of the visual stuff, so in terms of your game taste then, are you likely to give a game more of a chance if it looks like really, really good then? Or do you solely judge it on the gameplay? But do you respect, when you're looking at, say, if you're looking at like a really, really well kind of designed game, are you, and I'm not talking kind of like mechanics wise, but just looks absolutely stunning, are you more likely to kind of give it a little bit of respect for the obvious amount of time that it's taken to actually design all the artistic pieces and stuff like that that's part of the game?
It's a good question. I think a good looking game sells. Like if it has a table presence, or if it's got, just gorgeous artwork, or, even if it's like quite abstract and like art light, but it's just got really good use of like design sort of theory of like colors and stuff. Like it's definitely a big draw for me. It will get me to the table, like for sure. Whether it will keep me there is a different thing. Like I would rather play an ugly game that was just so like well thought out mechanically and scratched like an itch that I was going for, than one that's sort of maybe a bit, a lot of emphasis on just the design of the actual like assets and stuff. But yeah, no, I definitely think like I absolutely love like when you go to like board game shops or like cafes and stuff, and you just kind of see there's like little boxes of possibility, and you're kind of like, it's like choosing the ones that like you get most drawn to, because some of them you just sort of look at, you're like, that is just not my game, never going to want to play that. Like if I bring like some of my friends who don't get into board games, like I've made the mistake of like I always let my friends just choose, especially if they've not played board games before. And I'll give them a warning if I'm like, I don't know if you want to play this yet. Like maybe start with a starter before you go into like a full 7-course meal. But viticulture gets picked a lot, and I'm always like, just so you know, if you've never played board games before, this is a bit meatier than you might think. But they're like, yeah, but it looks so nice, and I love drinking wine, and it looks so lovely. And I'm like, no, it is. It's really great. Like, it's my favorite board game. But like, I'm just saying. And I made the mistake of like dumping it down in front of people, and then they're just like halfway through, they're like, oh my god, my brain is melting, I'm having to learn a million different things. I'm like, I'm so sorry, like I'm not having the best time. Like they're just like, I know. It's easy
like
to
one
do.
Of those things. It's one of those things like teaching people how to cook an excellent meal, but then telling them every single time they try, they actually need to eat what they've actually made so far as well. So I think pretty soon they're kind of like, oh, this is meant to be so lovely, but I can't be bothered kind of anymore. This is absolutely terrible. Please let me go. Do you, in terms of the graphical look of your own games, do you have quite a disciplined approach in order to kind of make things look as different as possible? Because I mean, you mentioned you mentioned obviously viticulture, which has a kind of like a certain look and feel. But one of the things that Jamie Stegmaier at Stonemaier Games is probably pretty famous for is that all of his games seem to have a kind of almost like a classical art-y type watercolor type style. I mean, if you look at Wingspan, if you look at Scythe, if you look at, as I say, viticulture, there's a kind of a certain kind of ye olde style art to it, you know, between two cities. I think the only one that kind of stretches out a bit is maybe Euphoria. But for someone like yourself, because you've got that design background, are you quite disciplined to say, actually, let's make something look I want something to look kind of different from the last time? Because I'm looking at, say, the Poison Gardens of Alwick, and I'm looking at I'm also then looking at Pack It In, and then I'm looking at Your Unbearable, and they've all got very kind of differing kind of graphical styles. Was that a conscious decision that you made to say they're mint tins, but let's make them look as far away from each other as possible?
Yeah, I think it is a conscious decision. I think it's also just getting better at actually doing it. You know, with sort of Packet Tin, like that's the first one, and it's definitely like from the outside looks really good. I think that it's the one that I'm least happy with, the sort of like graphic designs of it. But then I just kind of I got practice at like what to add, and actually even just having like the assets that I build for like the card sizes and all that stuff on hand means that like when I first did Packet Tin, I had to figure out the size of the cards and print them, and I had to do it. I have a really crap printer, so it was just like it was never the right size, and so I eventually got that down. And then same with the rule books and stuff. Like I get all the sizes now, so I can kind of very quickly get something sort of done. And then because I'm not wasting, I don't want to say wasting, but like because I'm not delicately spending time doing like that slog work before. I have more time to sort of focus on, okay, how do I make it look better? Like what could I improve on the previous version, or, you know, and then because I then make those assets, I now have those for future games that I'll slightly remix. So it's kind of like just doing, I don't get the chance to design games as much these days, but like when sort of, I remember like last year I was just churning games out constantly, and it meant that you just sort of get to the point where you just have quick assets you can just use, and then you can change them and you can update them. Like that's just on the design side, but like from the point of view of the like they're also different. Like Unbearable is the big one that I'm really looking forward to, like hopefully launching this year. They're sort of, I think, like I want it so that when you kind of open the tin, it's a bit of like an experience in itself. Like every time you open a different one, so like Packet Tin, when you open it, you get to see like a passport, and you get to see like a boarding card and all this stuff. Whereas in like Tinderblox, it was like you open it and there's like a fire. I mean, it used to have a lot of like stuff on the inside of the tin, inside lid. But the you'd like open it up and there was like a card, and then it had like a little campfire, and you pull it off, and then there's just all these blocks underneath. Like same with Unbearable, you open it and it's like there's like sort of the start of a camp sort of site. It's not a fire making. It's not another fire making game when I say camp. No, that you're running away from a grizzly bear. It's a very, very different kind of tone. But I like the idea that you're going to buy a game and you open it up, and then it's like, oh wow, this just makes me want to kind of get in there, sort of thing. And naturally, I think just because I like sort of trying to make very different games from the previous ones, it naturally just kind of makes sort of the sped up time element of having the assets already and the desire to like make a new game. It kind of just has naturally progressed to sort of very different things. But yeah, it's just sort of like it's a nice to have a variety of stuff as well to show. Like I've got a game called Lost in Space, which is, I know there's so many tin puns. Unbearable's the only one without a tin pun actually right now. But I love how you just
inner groan is right up there. I'm thinking like, okay, so how can we move the conversation? Where can we go next with this chat? What can I ask Rob next? Then you hit me with a tin pun, and my brain just goes.
You're just awestruck at how brilliant it is, or how awful it is.
Richard.podcast.exe has stopped working.
Yeah, I mean, it's just fun. I don't care. I love the puns. I'm a big fan of the puns. Give me a board game pun.
What are you going to do when you run out of But what are you going to do when you run out of puns, though? I mean, is that you're going to be like, oh, I've got some brilliant ideas for a game, but I can't actually think of an appropriate pun. So therefore, technically, I can't make the game. I'm stuffed.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I'll have to retire. That's it. If I can't think of a pun for the name, then the game doesn't get done. Never gets finished. It's the most critical part to marketing the game. No, they always start off as really boring names. You know, it'll be like Tin Game 1, Tin Game 5. But then, yeah, they kind of get the theme as you go, so it gets a bit better.
Did the idea for Tinderblox, did you just come along? I mean, was it kind of there? Did you kind of like, wait, what, actually? Yeah, let's do that. And then it just worked. Or was it something that you started off, was there a lot of work to get it down to where it is just now?
Well, Tinderblox was actually probably the quickest game I've designed. It was something that, so I mean, it's been like sort of made a lot more accessible since the version that I made. But it's basically this. It's basically the sort of same game. It's just removed a few bells and whistles here and there, but the core game's the same. And actually, it was a bit of a weird sort of freak incident because my sister and my mum were talking about. Well, my sister, shout out to Jenny, was recently was I think single at this point. This is a while ago, and they were talking about Tinder. My mum was like, I don't really understand it. So I was like, well, Jenny was explaining this to my mum, which was just funny in itself. And then I was sat there thinking like, oh, I wonder how you'd make a Tinder board game.
Oh, wow.
You know, like, how would that work? And I had this, like, we all started talking about it, like, we were a bit drunk. So, you know, it's understandable we got to this. But I had like I thought, how about a deck of cards with just like people's faces up, like, so it's all face up, and then you literally just swipe the cards off the deck left and right, and then that was the mechanic. Like, I didn't really get much further than that, but I was like, that could be kind of funny, you know. So completely unrelated. But then the next day I went home and I was playing the Quacks of Quedlinburg, which is I love that game. Literally could play that anytime. But I was thinking in my mind, like, I would love to make a mint tin version of the Quacks of Quedlinburg, like, just capture that feeling of like you're dipping your hand in and it's you know, it's that sort of like, oh, I wonder what I'll get. You pull it out and then there's no like it's always like, oh, thank God, or like hell yeah, you know. And I was trying to like see if I could capture that specific thing. So I got a tin and I got my copy of Islebound from Ryan Lockett, and it had these like little cardboard wood tokens in there, and it also had what is now in Tinderblox, these sort of actual 3D wood pieces. But the original idea was, what about if I could get you like put all the cardboard flat wood pieces in the wood tokens in the tin, and you got like some sort of fire pieces that you would have to like close the tin, shake it, and then you'd open it and see if like it kind of looked like a campfire, and there'll be some weird scoring stuff. And I played it, and it was shocking. It was really bad. I was like, this is the most boring game I have ever played. And I was just sat there with like the tin and the wooden blocks from like that I wasn't even using for that prototype. They were just next to me because I put them out of the box, and I just kind of pulled them out. Whilst I was thinking, I was literally just stacking the sort of yellow and red blocks and the normal logs, and I was just sort of thinking like, this is kind of fun, to be honest. Just, you know, blocks are cool. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. But I then literally just thought, I wonder if these would be better with tweezers. And it really did just out of nowhere. The whole game just sort of came to me where I thought, well, if I get a card and you have to stack them up, and the original game had a dice that you rolled to decide what you placed. You didn't have the cards. Though I prefer it with the cards because you get more variety of sort of stuff, and you might not get the same turn coming up twice and stuff. But the original one was just you roll a d6 and like it was like a cinder or a left-handed log or whatever. And I just started to play that, and it to be honest, the rules didn't really change from that. It took probably about the game. I think I sort of had the whole core game idea in an evening, and then the next day I sort of actually like thought about it, like really started to think about like, okay, well, like, what's the aim here? Is this like sort of Jenga? Is there more strategy to this? And I started playing at my friends, and they just went wild for it. Like, and so it did kind of evolve out of a very funny conversation with my sister and my mum. And yeah, it was a bit of a freak sort of like, I mean, it was pretty lucky, to be honest, that I just sort of had those pieces in front of me and it just clicked all of a sudden. So yeah, I mean, as far as any of my games go that like I spend quite a long time on, that one was definitely the one that was the shortest and sweetest for sure. Like it was pretty great to play that. And then like I sort of submitted it to the Publisher Designer Speed Dating event, and it didn't even get that far because Caesar saw the sell sheet, and he said to me, he literally like jumped up and like signed that game right now to I think Simon, his teammate. And I was like, there were a few more expletives, but I'll hold this back. And they literally they asked for a prototype, and I sent it to them, and yeah, the sort of everything was sorted before I got to UK Games Expo. So it was a very, very good Games Expo for me to just sort of go to my first ever board game expo. You know, only been designing games for like sort of just under a year, and then to go there and be like, I've got my first game signed, like that was just an incredible experience for me. And they were great. Like Alicat have been really great with the whole process. They gave me a bunch of free games when I went to UK Games Expo. So I was like, oh god, I feels like a celebrity already.
Some kind of royalty.
I know.
Okay, here's my actual list of games that I want. Get them immediately. But it's got is 4 copies of Quacks of Quedlingburg. Yes, I know what I like. Just get me those 4 copies now. But is it it must have been really kind of cool for your kind of levels of confidence as a designer as well, to think, well, actually, maybe I am cut out for this. Maybe this is somewhere I can, something I can do and somewhere I can actually go. Because I know the biggest struggle for a lot of designers is getting anybody to look at their game. Because there's no point going to friends and family, because friends and family they'll either go one or two things. They're going, oh, still doing this, are you? Or they'll go, this is amazing, this is fantastic, this is brilliant. It's like, I've not even opened up the box. I know, but I'm just practicing. And, but then to kind of get noticed, you go through the thing of play test groups and blind play testing and all that kind of nonsense. But was your original plan, did you actually think of taking it to the Kickstarter route yourself, or were you kind of always, look, I'm just going to pitch this around some publishers and see who's going to potentially take it on?
I mean, at this point, I didn't really think that far ahead. I was so caught up in just, I had my head down just making games constantly. I obviously most of them were absolutely terrible, but like, you get one good idea out of one, and then that's fine. It served its purpose. You take that and you can use it again later. So I wasn't really thinking about it, not seriously, but I was kind of thinking, yeah, this is kind of cool. It wasn't until that first, contest when I won that is when I started to think, oh, okay, like maybe there's something to this. And for Tinderblox to just get picked up, I was just, super chuffed with that I didn't really think this far ahead, to the point where we're now sort of, we have our own company and we're looking to sort of spend the year getting very slowly getting a few of our own games out self-published, and then also working with sort of collaborating with other people and working with like licensing games to publishers. I mean, a year ago, I literally just got the results for Packet Tin, which was, that I'd won, and I was like, "Whoa, this is pretty cool." To think now, it's pretty mind blowing, to be honest. It's a lot of work though. Like, it's a lot of work setting up a company, I have to say. But yeah, I have to say it's very rewarding. But you're right. I think you've actually touched on a really good point there, where it's like it is really hard to get the sort of, the interest in what you're doing. You're totally right. You bring it to friends and family, and they're always going to be sweeter than you actually. Yeah. It's you could be like, this is my horrible child of a game, and then they're just like, it's so beautiful. You're like, oh, thanks, and then you show it to someone else. They're like, this is horrible. But I think that in that case, like, I never really needed that sort of. It was just really like a blessing to get it from like a big publisher, especially one that I'm really like respect, like Alley Cat Games. But to be honest, like because I had the Instagram, I think like my Board Game Bud Instagram page was actually the most fundamental part of actually being sort of feeling like I don't need to. Like, you just get so much support. Like, if you post something like a little picture of one of your games, and you know you get a few likes and stuff, it's when somebody comments like, "I like this. This is really cool," and they don't have to do that. Like, they could totally just, you know. I think that actually was the main thing, and the support has just been ridiculous. Like, I'm so lucky to have such a great sort of like group of people on there, and there's so many, like, there's nothing better than whenever I see sort of new designers or veteran designers posting their designs up and having a good conversation about it and stuff. Like, I wish I could use Board Game Geek. I think I think there's a lot more better stuff there, but the UI just makes me cry. So I'm like, as a graphic designer, I'm like, oh. But, you know, yeah, it doesn't matter. Just find your community, and it will hold you through a lot of the self-doubt, I guess.
I think that's the most difficult thing for a lot of people nowadays, because I think there are people like, say, Cesar, who know, and I'm not going to say anything nasty about him, but you have to take his your hats off to him, that he saw that, you know, he did Lab Wars, and then he was like, do you know what, I'm really good at kind of like organising stuff and getting stuff together, and then the next thing you know, he is like bringing on game after game after game on a Kickstarter, and they all seem to be doing just phenomenally well. You know, he's like his Dice Hospital, for goodness sake, Chocolate Factory. I mean, these are games that are getting remarkably positive praise from all different types of angles. So it's almost like a case of, when the next Alley Cat Games Kickstarter comes out, they've got a huge fan base for them to go ahead. And I understand that's really, really difficult to build. As somebody who you know, has been doing this for 4 years, I know the importance of community, and I also know how difficult it is to build up a community. And I know for a lot of board game designers, that's a really, really difficult thing to do, is to actually go out there and represent yourself. And because some people just, that's not their bag, it's not what they're used to doing. They've designed a cracking game, and the number of times, and if I see it quite a lot, is I'll get sent a game, and it's really good. I mean, it's really good to play. But it kind of whimpers off onto the side, and nobody's ever heard about it, because the person themselves, they're not that person who can swing it about and go, hey, look at my game, kind of thing. They're not that type of person. And I see a lot of games kind of falling to the wayside, kind of because of that. And that's why things like what Cesar's doing is really, really important to give some designers, or a lot of designers, that kind of platform where they can jump on to Kickstarter and not have people asking, going, well, who the hell are you? Never heard of you. Kind of thing. They're going, oh, it's Alley Cat Games. Oh, we can just go ahead and kind of back straight away. Would you move away from the mint tin then? Or is this your wheelhouse?
I mean, so full disclosure, the Unbearable is not technically in a mint tin. That's actually in a slightly bigger tin, but it's still basically a mint tin. It's just got a little bit more room. So, of course. Like, I've designed a bunch of non-mint tin games. I like to do roll and writes. I think if you're interested in board game design, or just getting better at like board game design, you can't go wrong on roll and writes, because world's your oyster. You literally you need a blank piece of paper, and you could literally you don't have to worry about having loads of board games that you can pull resources out and test with. You literally need dice, and you literally need a pencil and a paper, and you can just start coming up with some really interesting ideas, and you can go really far with it. I think I would like to design sort of bigger box games, but it's definitely, I just like portable games. Like, I think I've got so many big box games that just never hit the table, and it's everyone has that shelf of shame sort of thing where, I think like one game that I absolutely love is I've got Joan of Arc from Mythic Games. Absolutely,
yeah.
Absolutely love Mythic Games. They're so brilliant. The only problem is that beast takes like an hour to set up, like an hour to put away, and it's so amazing once it's up. The game is brilliant, but it just doesn't really get the chance to hit the table because if we've got friends over and we've got an evening, it's just not going to happen. Like, so I like really interesting, huge big box games with millions of minis and stuff, but I like games I actually get to play more, like just the nature of it. So I definitely would do other style games, but I'm loving the tins. They're sturdy. They're kind of waterproof-ish, at least more than a box is.
You can stack them.
Yeah, you can stack it.
You can stack them.
A little rattle. They sound better than a box.
Where'd you get them from? I mean, do you steal them from old people, or do you get them is there a mint tin supply? And I mean, if you go on public transport, do you get people trying to sit next to you because your breath is so minty fresh?
Well, I tried to coerce a lot of elderly people to sort of show me where they keep their hard-boiled sweet supply. So I dig through the Werther's originals and the mint humbugs and find their mint tins and just make games out of them. So no, I mean, I buy them online. Like, they're not. I think they're sort of. I actually have discovered a really good website called Tinware Direct, which is I've been buying them from like Amazon. That isn't a plug. I'm not even. That's not like I'm not sponsored by them. No,
I bet you totally sit there on like a Thursday night when there's nothing on the telly and just like scroll through, just thinking, I'm
not even kidding.
Could totally fit standing meeples in there. That'd be amazing.
I've literally just been. I've been browsing that site. Oh, so good. It's just like
you've bookmarked pages, haven't you? Don't lie.
It's for the bedroom. Don't worry about it. No, they're sort of just. I get them. I used to get them from like Amazon, and then they're a bit shoddy. And then I found this site, and I got to the point where I stopped kidding myself and stopped ordering like 1 or 2 tins at a time, and I just order a box of like 36 of them, and I was like, well, okay, let's do it. But to be honest, actually, the reason this is actually another big thing about my like how I got into mint tin stuff was like a previous partner that I used to have. She got me like the best Christmas present ever, which was sort of like, it was a 12-pack of these mint tins, because this was when I was really starting out, and like 12-pack of these mint tins, and then put like a really lovely like word of encouragement in each of them. And so like whenever I went to go make a new game, I'd open it up, and then there was like a sort of like, you could do it, like you're amazing, and I was just like, yeah, I am amazing, I'm like a good game. So it's kind of, that's actually, she started my addiction. That's her fault. I'm blaming you, Vienna. No, it's cool. I mean, they're great. There's nothing wrong about tins. I mean, I have a mint leaf tattoo on my wrist, so I guess I'm not judging.
Okay, controversial question. Which game's better, yours or the other fella's?
So I think the other one was I think Simon and Cesar did Kitten.
Yes.
And I mean,
yes,
they're horses for courses. I prefer Tinderblox, but that's my game, so obviously I'm going to prefer it. But when we had a launch party, and we had like Tinderblox set up, and I had Kitten as well. And there's like, to be honest, I've seen so many people coming up and they'll just walk straight past Tinderblox and they see the little cat meeple and they're like hooked. They're immediately in there. So from my point of view, I prefer I don't really like real-time games that much. Like I prefer like sitting back and sort of heckling friends whilst they're taking their turns. So Tinderblox is more my cup of tea for sure. But I mean, they're both great games. And if you like sort of more fast-paced stuff, then Kitten is more your bag for sure. If you prefer I do like that most of the reviews keep referring to Tinderblox as a bit of a pub game. Like everyone's like, oh, it's so lovely, it's for kids, and I'm like, yeah, but have you ever played it with shots on the line? Because then people really focus. Like, yeah,
and real fire.
Oh yeah, just get some Fireball whiskey.
That would be absolutely amazing. What is somebody who's starting, not starting out, but has already had several points of success in your career so far? What advice would you give to somebody who is starting out, who's got a couple of games? Is there any advice you say, oh, I wish I'd heard that when I was starting out? It would have saved me lots of money, apart from obviously don't buy mint tins from Amazon. But is there any other?
Yeah, I think that's a good question, because I'm doing a talk at the end of the month at a gaming convention in Bristol, where I'm from, called Concord. I'm bricking it, but it's the first like public speaking sort of thing. So I thought I could do it on anything, cool. So I'm going to do it on sort of 6 stories of 6 interesting lessons I learned from game design that I don't necessarily know if you're going to find elsewhere. Well, you probably will, but like it's not like they're unique to me in a sense. But I think that the 2 main parts of that, if I can give a sort of half answer, is like community and constraints. I think that those 2 ideas were just the things that propelled this little, board game hobbyist to, the sort of very lucky success I've had these sort of in the last couple of months. And it's basically down to you kind of need to show people what you're doing. It's all good and well to sort of have a cool game idea and you sort of like keep it to yourself. And I don't necessarily mean like show the world. I'm not talking about like crazy, but you kind of need to find the people that do care about it. And if you haven't got any of those in your life, go join some gaming groups, whether it's just chatting to people on Facebook or Instagram or, Board Game Geek, or whether it's you have a friend who's just so into it. Like you need someone to really want to see you do well there, really. And that's like the first part. And the second part is constraints. And that's basically every new designer goes down the rabbit hole of they think they've got a great game idea and they add and add and add. Like make the goalposts so narrow that you literally haven't got a choice but to go through. Like it's basically if you've got something, whether your constraint is a deadline or whether it is only using a specific component or whether it is doing something in a mint tin, that's my one basically. Find something that focuses your design, and you'll be really surprised how you will innovate to get around those constraints. And that's how I've done all my games. It's just I'm not allowed to have more than something in a tin, so I guess all the cards have to be multi-purpose, or they have to really serve their purpose. So yeah, I think they're definitely the 2 things that pushed me to where I am now, which I'm very grateful for. But I don't necessarily see those as much as I think online as there's so much good advice out there. So yeah, and also follow Jamie Stegmaier's blog. That's the third piece of advice. That's just gold. That
just goes without saying. I mean, I think that just goes without saying. Yeah, well. I think that's everybody's bit of advice. Sometimes that's people's first bit of advice. But if people want to find out more about your bad self, where do you exist on the interweb nets?
Well, the best place to probably find me is where it all began, which is Instagram. So that's at BoardGameBud. I'm on Twitter as well now, but I don't really understand it. I'm kind of getting better at that. And we are on Facebook, but once again, it's a bit old that now for me. So Instagram is the best place. Or you can find on our website at boardgamebud.com, we're posting blogs. That's my more personal stuff on there. But yeah, okay. Cool pics on Instagram. That's my bag.
There we go.
There it is.
What we'll do, we will put the links in the show notes so that we have got notes to show. If you want to keep an eye on what we're up to, go to the Google, search for We're Not Wizards, you'll find us. That's it.
That's it.
We're everywhere. That's it. It's just like, we're at Instagram, Facebooks, Twitterers,
MySpace.
you know, you know, even websites that no longer, you know, exist anymore. Ones that have shut down. You know, you can find us on Netscape if it takes your fancy. If you like what you've listened to, tell someone else. One of the ways that we spread is through skin-to-skin contact, but also by people telling other people about us as well. So feel free to do that. If you want to do something even extra special, go to the Apple Podcasts and consider giving us a rating or a review. We've been doing this for 4 years. We're maybe worth at least 4 stars, I think. There's only a couple more things to do. First thing is to remember that we're many things, but we're not wizards. Are we wizards, Rob?
Absolutely not. No way. I'm a rogue.
And the second thing is to say goodbye. So it's a goodbye from the rather wonderful, rather fantastic Mr. Rob Sparks. Say goodbye, Rob.
Thank you very much for having me. It's been a pleasure for the first podcast.
No, thank you. Thank you.
No, thank you.
Thank you.
It takes two to tango.
And the second, it sometimes. And the second thing is, it's a goodbye from me. Stay safe. Roll sixes. Check out the Tinderblox game on Kickstarter because it looks amazing, fantastic, simple and fun. And don't play with petrol, kids. But until the next time, goodbye.
A wizard is never late. Nor is he early. He arrives precisely when he means to.